year, and you know what? I'd like to really just start. And I've opened up the My Floriani Today page. You know that we have both now the Floriani Club, but we still have the My Floriani Today page. That's what you're looking at on the screen. Look, folks, I've got to start out, and Kathy alluded to it. I am super excited about our last update, 2775, released November 4th. The feedback from this update has been absolutely incredible. It truly has. I knew when I was reviewing it and going through it, it would be, but your feedback, folks, has been absolutely amazing. I thank you. Look, as we continue to bring you features that you loved in FTCP, we're also trying to bring you brand new, exciting features never seen in Floriani software before. Look, right here, I want to direct you to this button right here, What's New with FTC-U. If you click on that, and we'll scroll down a little bit, you're going to notice that right down here are all the new features. Look, things like the fling repeat, the corners repeat, the brand new repeat design segment, 10 brand new fonts, our new define horizon and scale for working with images, the new launch page for the software, and so much more. Just look at this. All these new features, all these enhancements. We certainly did some bug fixes. As you scroll down, though, look at this now. And you know what? I have to thank at this point. I do every webinar, but I'm going to do it again. I've got to thank DJ. Without DJ working tirelessly to bring you guys all this, I've been on the road for weeks and weeks now. DJ has been sitting here compiling, getting these stuff. We had a list, but he's the one who's making this come to reality, bringing it to us. He also does all of this because, look, every new update, you now have written information about it, a little bit about how it works, but then if you scroll down a little bit, there is a video for every new feature. Every update that comes out tells you about the update. Wait till you see, if you haven't seen this fling feature, I'm serious, when we're done tonight, go in and bring a design up on the screen and just click your fling icon. I think you'll absolutely be amazed. Amazing new features, but you're always going to get written documentation. You're going to get videos. As we scroll down, it just keeps going on and on. It's absolutely amazing. I just wanted to share with you the Floriani My Today page, show you where that information is on the new updates and features, and I wanted to make sure that you do know there is a video that goes with every one of those. It really is quite amazing. Look, let's talk about tonight's webinar, and we call this one Bringing It All Together. We've covered a lot of information over the past year, and tonight I want to try to bring it all together for you. Look, to do this, I'm going to do the following. First of all, I'm going to digitize a design for you folks. I'm going to show you what you need to do to the stitches to get it ready for stitching out. I'm going to show you how to add dimension and creativity to your designs. Given that we have time left, I'm going to auto-digitize a design and teach you. I'm so excited about the way our auto-digitizing now works. Again, I think we've revolutionized the auto-digitizing process, but certainly once it's auto-digitized, there are things that you can do to make the design run even better. If we have time when I'm done digitizing this design, I'm going to do my best to get to it. And then I'm going to finally show you how and why we did each webinar this year in the order that we did them. I'll explain how you can use these webinars to learn how to digitize your own designs and add creativity to them. So with that said, let's go ahead and digitize a design. Now, let me start off by explaining, and this is kind of where we started with all of these webinars over the last year, that to me, embroidery always has and always will be a simple process. So the design that I'm going to bring up is not an extremely complex. Complexity, though, in most cases is what a design looks like, okay? The thing I try to get across about the simplicity of embroidery is that, and I've always stated this, and our webinar series started about this, embroidery is nothing more than 3 stitch types: running, satin, and fill stitches. Embroidery is also combinations of stitches. I'm going to go ahead and I guess let's start by bringing up a design. We sat here and just threw a little something together earlier, and it's just a design of a little sunshine. Hold on one second. I just have to get to it. It's down here at the bottom. I'll open it up. Not complex by any means, but do you know what this design has? Embroidery, again, 3 stitch types. This design is going to have all 3 stitch types involved in it. It's also going to have fill stitches next to satin stitches. It's going to have satin next to satin. It's going to have satin next to run stitches. It's going to have run stitches next to fill stitches. 4, maybe almost 5 of the elements of the 6 combinations of stitches possible in embroidery are combined in even a simple design like this. My point overall is this, folks. Complexity is nothing more than simply understanding how to put the pieces of embroidery together. Okay, when I bring it all together at the end, you'll see how each step has taken us there. But where does it start? Let's start with the steps to creation. First of all, the first thing when you want to create a design is you load your backdrop or you import your artwork. The difference between the two. Backdrops are bitmaps, JPEGs. Import artwork is for vector images. So there is a difference. I just did a seminar last week. Someone said I couldn't get my artwork in. Well, they kept clicking on import artwork. Import artwork is for vector designs. Pixelated images, JPEGs, bitmaps are done under load backdrop. So you click file and load backdrop, or you simply have a backdrop tool right here that'll allow you to select the backdrop. Now, the very first thing that you're going to do once you have your image on the screen is size your design. All right, I have it in inches right now. Everyone knows I work in the metric form or in the metric measurement system in embroidery, but I size in inches. Well, this blessed design is almost 13.5 inches wide. I just wanted this to be about 5 inches, so I'm going to change all I need to do is change the one size. The height will change proportionately, so I told it a width of 5 inches, all right? So we size the design to the finished design. I cannot stress how important that is. The next aspect of creating a design is we're going to measure the elements, so I'm going to zoom in. Again, stitch type is determined by the size of your design, the finished size. That's why I put in the finished size. Want this design to be 5 inches. Once it's up on the screen in the finished size, in Floriani software, grab your ruler, go to the yellow stitching. What am I going to make it? Just measure across it, hold down the left the left button on your mouse. You'll see that says it's 2.47 inches wide. It's telling you to use a fill stitch. All right, I'm going to jump back over to metric. Look, again, I size in inches, but I work in metric. To go to metric, simply come to this margin area on the left or up here on the top. I right-click and I tell it to be in metric. Now I'm in my working format, which is metric. So the yellow is a fill stitch. The orange, I measure across it, is 2.4 millimeters wide. It's telling me utilize a satin stitch. Going to measure the green. The green is 2.5. It's telling me to use a satin stitch. But you know what? I'm going to super zoom in here because I also see, when I look close, I see a little bit of fading or another color. So to me, that fine line right there is also a color in this design. I'll grab my ruler. I'll measure the width of that structure right there. And it's telling me to use a run stitch. So simply by bringing it into the finished size, measuring each element, it tells me exactly what stitch type to utilize. I'm proud of that. Still the only software in the world that does that. Now, once you know what elements that you have, the next aspect of embroidery creation is determining your sequence. What I mean by that is, what am I going to digitize first? What am I going to do second? Well, look, pretty simple for me. I tend to think of the reality of things. And what I mean by that is, I see that the green is probably like grass. It's certainly sitting in front of the sun. So the sun, the yellow area in the sun, is going to be the first element that I create. That's my color number 1. The orange, and then that very fine line that goes around that orange or to the inside of it, orange is going to be my second color. Because I'm going to use a different direction of the fill stitch than the satin stitch, it'll make that orange pop up a little bit more. And then that run stitch, you know what, I think I'll probably use a bean stitch there to again create even more dimension. I'm going to end it with the satin stitch going straight up and down. Now again, simple design. But the point is that a fill stitch next to a satin, in the case here where the yellow meets the green, is always a fill stitch next to a satin, folks. Intensity of design does not matter. I want to stress this because it so simplifies embroidery. And as I close at the end and I take you through the other webinars, what we've been building through every successive webinar is an understanding of that. Designs are nothing more than stitch types, and the stitch type they're sitting next to. Because you know what? Once you're taught how to put a fill stitch next to a satin stitch, or a fill stitch next to a running stitch, or a satin stitch next to a running stitch, the stitch types, their inherent reaction and interaction with each other, folks, never changes. It never changes. It simplifies embroidery. Stop looking at a design as, let's say, a corporate logo or a golf design or a football or a dog or a horse. Measure the stitches. Well, it's a fill stitch. What's it sitting next to? It's a satin stitch. Well, if you know how to put a fill stitch next to a satin stitch correctly, you can put any fill stitch next to any satin stitch. Shapes do not matter in this process. The ability to know how to put one stitch type next to another stitch type is what matters. Let's get digitizing. We're going to execute the creation. The first thing I'm going to do is my fill stitch. Now, before I do the fill, I look at it. Number 1, I think of the direction for dimension. Again, this satin stitch in the orange is kind of going to go circular, but mostly up and down. Certainly the satin stitch in the green is going to go straight up and down. So I'm going to lay that fill stitch straight left to right. By laying it left to right and then taking the other stitches on top of it at the opposite direction, that's like adding a ton of underlay under there. It's going to make those other stitches pop. So the first thing I'm going to do is click on my complex fill stitch. I'm going to go down here to the color bar and I'm going to change colors. We'll just come over and pick this yellow right here. So we'll pick our color. We've already picked our fill stitch, okay? It's a standard fill. Now, at this point, because I would know, and I do know the garment that I'm going to put this on, okay? I'm going to put in my underlay, in this case perpendicular. That simply means the opposite direction of the top stitch. So I'm going to go ahead and select my underlay at this point in time. I'm also going to go back into the fill tab. I'm going to select 2 things, my stitch length and my density. 0.4 is the normal power-up density for a fill, but I find with this particular color and my 40 weight thread, lighter colors, my peaches and my yellows, tend to, I call them like fluff colors. They tend to blend a little nicer on softer type fabrics. I think that density needs to lighten up more. Now, realize I'm teaching you some real digitizing here. I'm not using the magic wand. I'm also not using Save to Sew yet. Realize you have an entire another level of control in Save to Sew. But when I'm just digitizing, I tend to do all my densities, all my underlay, all my compensations while I'm going through the digitizing process. While many of you Save to Sew is fabulous and the auto-digitizing features and such are fabulous, many of you want to digitize just like I'm doing now, so that's what I'm going to demo to you. At this point, I changed my density to a 0.4. If I wanted to change my stitch length, I would select stitch length and I would change it. It's set to 3.5. That's fine with me. Let me explain the importance of stitch length with a fill stitch. If you make a fill stitch too long, meaning 4 and above, and then you have a satin stitch or a stitch on top of it going the opposite direction, excuse me, you will pull gaps okay? When stitch lengths are less than 4 millimeters, all right, 3 to 4 millimeters or so, you'll never pull a gap. So I have stitching going on top of this sun, both in the top satin stitch and in the bottom satin stitch. So I'm going to let it be and leave it at that 3.5 millimeter stitch length. So I've selected, number one, what direction I'm going to make it. I've selected my stitch length to minimize gapping. And I've selected my density. Now, I'm going to go ahead and execute the fill stitch. Okay? Yes, also, every time that you do that, I apologize, you must click apply. So once I change any value like the density, click apply right there, or it will go back indeed to the power up. The same thing with the underlay. If I came in and changed the underlay, once you've selected it, always click apply. I do apologize. That is part of the properties box process. You've always got to hit apply. So I've set my parameters. I've selected my complex fill. I've left clicked and selected my color. Digitizing this complex fill. I don't even have to zoom in that much. I will go ahead and zoom in though just a little bit. I'll zoom in. Again, I'm in my fill stitch. I'm simply going to, with a series of left clicks, just click. Now, my first stitch point is always a straight, but now I'm coming into curves, and I can lengthen my points by holding down the control key. So I'm going to hold down the control key, and I'm simply going to left click these points of the fill. We're almost done here. In fact, I can lengthen even a little more than that. Come in there, and we'll finish down here at the end. Now, in the software, you need to finish it, so now I've got to come all the way over to the left, come over to the left, and I'm going to left click right on my, basically my start point, then right click, and it's going to ask me stitch direction. Here's my angle line. This would throw the stitches straight up and down. So I'm going to come to the left, I'm going to left click, and I'm simply going to move to the right and get to my 0 degrees or right about at it. I'm going to release. I now get a green little dot there. That is my start point. I'm going to go ahead and start this design up here, down here on the bottom right, let's say. That's where the design is going to start. But then I'm going to put the stop up here at the end. I want two things to take place here. I'm putting the stop point, basically the farthest distance away from the start, meaning the stop went all the way up at the top. I also like fills to move in a continuous direction. Fills tend to push materials. Example, if I would have put the end of the fill here, over on the left where my cursor is, the fill would have stitched up to the end point, then come up and stitch down. Many times that's how you get fabric sticking between the stitches, popping up. Stitches push fabric. I also don't want to too negatively affect this bottom satin. I want, if my material is going to be moved slightly, I want it to move up. So I'm starting down here on the bottom right. I'm ending on the top left, okay? That's done. Now, done, but not quite finished, because what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come up and I'm going to select my running stitch, all right? I like to minimize trims in my embroidery designs at color changes and such. So I will normally, where that fill ended, go into a running stitch, and I will drop a series of stitches to the start point, or to the suggested start point, where I want to start that orange satin, because that orange satin is what's coming down now. So just with a series of preset running stitches, I'm going to move over just a little bit, and then I'm going to right click, and that's done. So you'll see if I open up here in the sequence box, laid my fill, then I've come in and I've made a running. I did that running to create a movement to the next color change. It also enhances that continuous filament of thread. Now, while I'm done, not quite, because what I did not add, I'll click on the fill. I certainly changed my density, left the stitch length, controlled my underlay, but I also am going to add at this point my pull and my push, all right? Again, the great thing about Floriani software is that pull and push, and the pull, it works in absolute values. in the other videos that are on there, and as I've taught for years now, when you put a fill, because what element do I have here? I have a fill stitch next to a satin stitch. When you put a fill stitch next to a satin stitch, the fill stitch needs to overlap into that satin stitch 1 millimeter or more in the direction the stitches are going. If the stitches are going left to right, I want it to overlap 1 millimeter or more. So I've selected the item. I go into pull push. I say I want you to absolutely on both sides overlap, and I can go ahead and put in my 1 millimeter. At the same time, I want to add push. The normal push of a fill stitch is 3 to 5/10 of a millimeter. That means that that fill, by the time I get up here to the top, is going to go into that satin stitch 3 to 5/10 of a millimeter. So I want to back off. It's going to do the same thing at the bottom. So on both sides, I want to apply by millimeters, again, both sides. Realize you have control side A, side B, and both sides. In this case, I want it on both sides, and I'm going to tell it 3/10 of a millimeter, hit back. Oops, excuse me. Let me just get back on that. Into my pull. I've given it an absolute value on both sides again to 1. I want to create in millimeters a 0.3, and I simply hit apply. And I've now done to some extent what Save to Sew does. Save to Sew understands its materials. It increases overlap. It decreases, meaning it shortens the stitch at the top for pull. And now we are truly done and we're ready to move on to the next stitch. The next area I'm going to do is the outer satin stitch. First of all, I determine my start point. I normally put my start point near where the first color stopped. Again, that enhances runnability. So I'm going to come in, and the first thing I'm going to do is, again, I'm going to select a running stitch, and then I'm going to come down and I'm going to change colors to that orange. So I'll select the color orange with the left click, and I'm now in my second color. At this point in time, again, I've selected my run. Now, I've selected a single run with a stitch length of 3 millimeters. I always look at the parameters. The rules to a running stitch, as I said in our webinar on running stitches, the rules are basically length and spacing and then the amount of times you want to repeat it. I just want a single run because I just want to drop the needle here and then just take 2 or 3 stitches or so to the start point of my satin stitch. All right? And I'm going to right click to end the segment. So I've selected my color. Now, the reason I drop a few little running stitches, again, it actually takes 4 to 7 revolutions of the hook that's located where the bobbin goes. That's called a hook. It takes 4 to 7 revolutions to retie to the top thread. So with automated, or with the machinery of today, which in itself normally drops a series of stitches, that's why when the needle first goes down, it goes down in the same position 2 or 3 or 4 times. By adding a couple more to that, we never have or very seldom have what we call thread pullout. Lots of times when you're changing colors, the first couple stitches come down, it pulls the thread out of the needle. It's not thread breakage, it's thread pullout. Those couple of stitches I just generated there will eliminate that thread pullout from happening. Now, I am ready to do my satin stitch, but I've covered part of that with my fill stitch now. So I come up to this little eyeball right here in my sequence view, right over here, and I simply click on it, and I'm just going to hide that yellow fill stitch right now. At this point in time, I have again selected my color. I made a movement with the run stitch, and now I'm simply going to come in here and I'm going to click on my satin stitch. Now, you've got to make a choice of satin stitches. Let me explain the difference. You actually have 3 types, but 2 that we call satin. The third is called a steel. I'll explain a steel first. A steel stitch is a balance with satin. That means the satin throughout the entire structure is 1 stitch width. I could utilize it for this, but I want to use satin stitches. You have more editing control when you're working in the satin as compared to the steel. A classic satin is what we call point counterpoint, meaning that you're hitting from one side to the other. So you would be going point, counterpoint, point, counterpoint, point, counterpoint. I'm going to use the normal satin stitch. When you use the normal satin stitch, select it. I'm going to drop my first stitch to the inside, the inner edge of this satin with a left click. I always do a small straight, and then I can go right into hitting the control button, and I'm just going to move along this line now. All left clicks. So you're left clicking along this line. Just get right on the line. Again, I'm not super zooming, but that's okay. The design is going to come out great anyway. I'm going to click right here. Then another left click, I'm going to click over to the other side. So I'm going to transfer from this side to the other side with a left click. And now I'm going to once again inundate with an initial straight stitch. Then I'm going to hit the control key for my curves. I can lengthen these points at this point. And I'm going to lengthen these and then just do a series of left clicks. Once those left clicks are done, you do have to, in FTC-U, close the structure. What I mean by that is when I get down here to the bottom, I'm still holding down the control key right now. I'm going to release and come straight over to the start point where I drop my first initial stitch of the satin stitch. I do a left click right on it, and then I right click. And then it's going to ask me for some angle lines. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to put one angle line right here. Excuse me, I'm going to put my first angle line down here at the bottom, and I'm going to go straight across, almost right on the points. Excuse me, I need to back out of that. I hit 2 points I wasn't supposed to. You know what, folks? I don't mind. I made a little error there, but it's okay because we all make little errors. I forgot to when I pull. I always use the classic satin, or almost always use the classic satin. So in the normal satin stitch, you actually click on your angle and you pull and drag. I was trying to do it as 2 clicks, but that's okay. We'll just do it very quickly here again. It doesn't take that long. Come straight across, left click again. I do apologize for that, but it does not embarrass me. Things happen. What's nice is that we have unlimited undos and unlimited redos. As I've always said, you can undo till you undone. You can redo till you redone. I hit my last one right here. Come across with actually my last one. Now I right click and it's asking me angle lines. Left click and hold it and pull your angle line. Release. I'm going to come up here, left click, hold it, pull it, and release. Going to come up to the top here, left click, hold it, put in my angle line and release. I'm going to put another one here, left click, hold it, do my angle and release. Come down here, left click, hold it, get the angle in there and release. Right click, it's saying, where do you want the start point? I want the start point over here. Where do I want the end point? It's now that red little button. I want that over here. Place that in place, and boom, the stitches are generated. Okay, if we open this up, you'll see that that satin path is now in there. Okay, now though, I'm ready to do this inner red underlay. So I'm going to hide this color also simply by clicking on the black. Excuse me, I need to click on that one more time because did I set the right underlay? I'm going to go in. The nice thing is when you first set your stitch type and you pick your stitch length and density, I forgot to do that at the beginning of this point. So I can come in at any time, simply select the element. I come up here right now. I actually wanted that satin stitch to be a 0.5. My stitch length of 3.5 is fine. I come into my underlay. Parallel underlay is absolutely fine, but I'm going to go into pull. In what order you do this, it's not that important. It's that you do it. So again, I forgot to do all that at the beginning, but no matter when I digitize that, I can always go back in. I can complete the whole design and go back in and make changes to pull and push and density and stitch length. So the natural pull of a satin stitch is absolute, and on both sides I want to increase the width 2 to 3/10 of a millimeter. I'm going to add 2. The absolute value in millimeters of push of a satin stitch is also 2 to 3/10. I'm going to tell it to be 2, and I'm going to click apply, and indeed we are now done. We've added our pull, we've added our push. You'll see it even as I zoom in here that the stitches have come outside. I didn't need to zoom in as much. These are actually the stitches extending 0.2 of a millimeter outside of that line, all right? Now, we're ready to do this area here, this fine line right here that I see in another color. So again, I'm going to turn off the orange, all right? I'm going to zoom out to fit the page. Just tell it to fit. I'm going to zoom into that area. That's going to be a run stitch. I'm going to do it in another tone. Now, I'm going to go ahead just so that you can see it clear and use one of these hot pinks or so. I can change it to any color that I want. So I'm going to select my running stitch. Excuse me. I'm still in the satin stitch right now, still on the color orange. Once again, just grab your run stitch. I ended it over here. Now, you know what? I'm going to drop just a couple more stitches. Excuse me. I didn't end it there. I ended it over here. I'm going to drop a couple more stitches in that segment right there. I'm going to go in and again pick my run stitch. It's a single run with a stitch length of 3 millimeters. My stitch length is fine. I want to select another color. Select it with a left click. Once again, I'm going to drop 2 to 3 tiny little stitches to this inner edge. Once I'm at that point, I'm going to right click and end that segment. I've already selected the running stitch, but now I'm going to make it a bean stitch. Going to make it a bean stitch because it makes it a heavier line and will add a fairly substantial dimension to that. So my stitch length is already set at 3 millimeters. Okay, once again, I needed to click apply. Let's go ahead. We've got the bean. I've clicked apply. Drop my first stitch right there. Going to come up. Going to drop another straight right here. Now again, just hitting the control keys. Going to come right along here. And I'm going to put that bean, that inner running stitch, right along the edge here of the satin stitch, in between the fill stitch. Because I overlapped the fill sufficiently into the satin, and the satin went down next, actually the combination I have here is I have a satin stitch next to a running stitch, and indeed that just got laid and is now the third color. So we have now completed that color. So we have our run stitch there. Did it go in there? Yep, it's right down here. You'll notice that we have the run. If you click though on the second run here, you'll see that it is indeed the bean stitch. If I click on the first element is the run stitch. That was my movement stitch. I'm now over here. So once again, I'm just going to click on that running stitch and just take a couple more stitches away from that area and stop right there, because now I'm going to come in and do the green. So now I'm going to zoom to fit. We're going to fit the whole page. Now, I'm going to change to my color green here, so I'll select my color. I'm going to come up and select my running stitch, but once again, its default now is bean because I applied it, so I have to go back to my single run. I'm going to hit single run and apply. I'm right over here right now, and I'm just going to take a few steps out to the beginning of this satin stitch in the green. But now watch this. Now look, this is a relatively easy satin stitch. I'm going to right click to finish that path. But this is a relatively easy satin stitch to digitize, but I want to show you another feature. In the software, we have these wonderful artwork features where you can create rectangles, ellipses, you can create triangles, you've got pentagons, you can create all these different effects or all these different shapes. I'm going to grab the rectangle. I'm going to come down here to the left bottom of that green. I'm going to left click and I'm going to pull and I'm just going to drag it, and I'm actually going to turn it into that size. Now, once it's turned into that size, get my height correct, I'm going to release it. What I now have, and you see it right here, is a piece of generated artwork. This is the difference between like a backdrop file, a pixelated file, and a vector file. Vector files comes in, and the software sees it as artwork. Now, I don't have to digitize a thing. What we did in the other platform is we used to have to do a convert to, but if you saw the webinar on this wonderful platform FTC-U, you now know that you have your stitch sequences down here, meaning you have your running stitches, you have your steel stitches, you have different effects that you can do with your satins, jagged edge satins, fancy satins, color blended satins. I'm just going to come right here to my auto satin and I'm going to click it, and you know what? Boom. That's done. Okay? That's done. So I only have one more thing to really do. That's click on the satin path, the green down here. Come up to my pull compensation. Once again, say absolutely on both sides. I want to add 2 to 3 tenths. I'm going to add 3 tenths to this one because I'm on open materials to the outside here. I'm going to say in tenths of millimeters on both sides. I want to control my push by 2 to 3 tenths. We'll make this one just 2 tenths. Click apply. And for all intents and purposes, folks, let me go ahead and close this up. That design is now done from start to finish. Now again, simple indeed. Let's make it look 3D, okay? But am I really done? Because you know what? I can do more. First of all, I'm going to go ahead and hide. Okay, I've just hidden the artwork, so there is no more artwork on there, all right? And I've got my 4 colors in there. Just 1 second. Let's get the stitches in there. I just realized the stitches weren't showing. I had to turn the eyeballs back on. I had them turned off. I apologize. Now, while I'm looking at this, and let's talk about now dimension in the embroidery process. I made that initial choice of that fill stitch going left to right to create that dimension. And it is a standard fill stitch with a smooth effect. But I think we can heighten that effect by coming in here right where it says smooth and clicking the down arrow. You have all these different choices in your standard fills. So I'm going to look for one that for me reflects, let's say, the sun better. I think the random stitch would look great. I really do. So I simply selected the sun, click the down arrow, and I'm going to tell it, make it a random stitch, click apply. We just changed that effect. I think that looks cool. That looks like bright and light spots on the sun. As you walk outside in the light, it would actually give it that type of effect. Now, I have that outside satin stitch, the orange, but I see that orange as like being beams or rays of sunshine going up. So rather than being straight and flat along that side, I'd like that to be peaked. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to implant what's called a jagged edge satin stitch. Now you can go right up here in the properties box and look for it, but once again, all you really have to do now is select it over here, click it open, click my satin path, and just come right down here to these wonderful icons, and there's your jagged satin right there. Click on it. Now, when it activates to both sides, but if you right click there, you'll see you can select first or second side. Now, I can't tell you first is left and top or right and bottom. It changes kind of, not with every satin, but based on the direction the satin is going, where you started, where you ended, that could change. So I'm going to give it a try, and I'm just going to say, let's try the first side. I click first and I hit apply. Well, that's the side that I wanted. But look, folks, because of the way satins are structured, again, it changes, not from satin to satin, but it does change just depending upon different values. But if you've chosen one and it's not the side that you want, you're still selected, just change it to the other side. Just down click and say, I didn't want you to be the first side, I wanted you to be the second side, and apply it. It changes that quick. Well, indeed, I wanted it to be the first side, so I'm going to click it. I'm going to apply it. But now, I don't think it's quite random enough for me to look like the kind of rays that I want it to. So, I have my jagged value right here set at 2. But this little slide bar can alter it for me. Let's take it up to about 5 and see what we get. Click apply. Oh, that's much better. That's much better for me. That looks like rays of sun now coming out from the sunshine. Now, the bottom, I want to give kind of the effect of ground. So I want to make that a jagged edge satin too. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to come in here and I'm going to grab that green. I'm going to grab it right here. The satin path. I'm going to once again come to that wonderful jagged edge
satin icon down at the bottom. It puts it to both sides. I actually, again, want it to be to the top now. But you know what? I'm going to try second. I think this one's going to end up being second. Click on second. Click apply. And indeed, that's what I wanted. I do want to make it a little more jagged, so I'm going to turn that up to just like a 3 or so I can increase that a little bit. Let's take it down a little bit. About 3.5 and apply it. I've added a whole nother dimension to it. Now, there's one other feature. What about that bean stitch? If I click on that bean stitch, I have my first run, which was my movement stitch. My second run, which was my bean. But look what I have here. I have bean repeats. That is a 3-time bean. It means it's going to go forward, backwards, forwards. But you know what? Within the software, you can change that to a 5 or a 7. I'm going to change that to a 7. That means it's going to go forward, back, forward, back, forward, back, forward. It takes the weight of the thread, builds it up on each other, and creates a whole other effect than that 3 is. See, these are things that it's what gets me so excited about the software. Yes, a fill is a fill, but you have an amazing amount of effects that you have within just a regular fill. You can create fancy or embossed fills. My gosh, I could make a fill stitch and put my name in it if I wanted to, utilizing true type text. You have all these controls at your fingertips. I always say, take your piece of artwork and color it. You'll find that if you laid your pencil like you were coloring these rays in the sun, you'd make them jagged like that. You wouldn't have drawn a smooth satin. Well, I can digitize a smooth satin because a satin like this in itself is very, very difficult to digitize unless you're doing it one stitch at a time, which very few digitizers do. So you digitize a very normal satin stitch very simply. Then you simply select it, come over and grab your random satin stitch icon, and boom. You make it a random satin stitch. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and crease it, but first, I'm going to change that bean stitch to a 7, click apply. It's now a 7-time bean. You don't really see it on the screen, but they're all the proper stitch length, and it is a 7 times. But now I want to go back into that orange one more time, and I'm going to go back into the jagged. You can also come up here and actually under column, I believe it is, you have your jagged edge, and you could apply your value there, but you have to select it first, excuse me. So I come in and select it, but I can also always enter it again with my jagged edge satin icon. It's back on both sides. Let's do it again the first side, but let's increase this to, let's say a 7 or so. I had it set a little over 5. Let's get it right at about 7. I like that look even more, okay? Play with the software. You got to make a little time to take a little time to play. Yes, that was a fairly simplistic design, but because we added special effects of the fill stitches in there, of those jagged edge satins, increasing how many times that bean stitch ran, and then the grass and giving it that illusion, we actually created quite a nice design. You know what, DJ? Are we going to have the ability to put this online so they can download this and actually run this? Look, I'm going to try. I can't promise. I'm going to talk to DJ after the webinar. I want to see if we can even make just this piece of artwork somehow downloadable. We've got to be able to do something. Simplicity means nothing. It's stitch type and what it's sitting next to. I don't care, again, if this was a dog, a house, a corporate logo. What it really is, it's a fill next to a running. It's a running next to a satin. It's a fill next to a satin. It's a fill next to a satin down here. It's satin next to a satin right here. You have almost every element of stitching and the combinations of stitches in one very simple design. Now, you all saw me do the auto-digitizing when we first did the preview, but what I'd like to go through now is I'd like to kind of bring it all together, because this is fine where it's led to, where you see a little demo on how to digitize something. But you know what, folks? If we go under Help and we go to the Floriani Club, click on the Floriani Club, it'll open it up. Put in your email address, your password, and sign in. Once you're inside there, go to Webinars. And it's going to bring up, not only will this one be up there, but it'll bring up all the past webinars. And you can see it's not quite in chronological order, but right here, January 7th of 2014, we talked about getting the most out of your software. But then we jumped into the stitches, running wild. It was all about running stitches and the rules. See, what's important when you digitize is you know how to articulate the stitch type by following the rules of length, of spacing, of the choices that you have with the running. I could have put a motif over that running. There's lots of things I could have done with that running stitch. All those rules are in this webinar. I have smoothed the satin. That was everything you needed to know about a satin stitch. All the rules to that satin and how to apply it on the software. We then, after April, went into, I guess it was June. Oop, it was down here. I jumped. Just 1 second. Smooth the satin was February. Oh, wait a second. I did jump. Where's March?
It's May.
Excuse me, May. Right here, fill to the brim was all about your fill stitching, okay? So as you go through here and look at it, you'll see just by date order, then we went into June, exploring some new features, but we had, just a second, DJ's behind me moving his arm. My mouse is jumping all around the place. Go down this way. That's 2012. See, they're up.
No, you got to go to the top.
I went to the top, brother.
No, scroll down. They all go upward. That's the newest.
Oh, well, excuse me. So the newest ones go up. Okay, I see. So you've got your January, then your February. Okay.
Go up. You already did fill to the brim, which is the top right. You go to the one in the top center.
May, then June,
Yes.
then July. Okay. Fill to the brim, all about fill stitching. I'm sorry about that, folks. The art form of distortion came after that. Imperfect perfection came after that. Then dimensional embroidery. Now, again, fill to the brim. Talked about the fill stitches, all the rules. Embroidery is an art form of distortion. I talked about all of the distortion values, showed you the 6 combinations of stitches, how to put them together. We talked about how embroidery runs better when digitized imperfectly. And there you learn tips on satin stitching and how when I make satin stitching, I basically use jagged edge satin stitching almost 100% of the time with an offset value of 0.1, 0.2. Every rule, every aspect that we actually just explored and just utilized in this design, dimensional embroidery. Dimensional embroidery meaning the stitch type creates the effect, the stitch direction creates the dimension. By running that fill in the sun left to right, we created the effect. By changing the direction of the satin stitches and taking them to jagged edge, changed both the dimension and the effect. That's how you create dimensional embroidery. Stitch type creates effect, direction creates dimension. Then we took a little break and we went to welcoming you to the FTC-U program where you saw the auto-digitizing. And then we did our last one, a continuous filament of thread. I will, at this point, just apologize on that one. I'm told not to even bring it up, but that was when I was injured and it was 2 days before that. So I do apologize for that, but it's no big deal because I feel like I'm back on track. And we're starting a whole new series of webinars now. I want this list and these designs and these webinars to be your foundation. Many of you are joining us for the first time here. If you go into this webinar area and you start in January, move on through the months, you will learn every rule to every stitch type. Then putting those stitch types together, I wanted to just bring that up, take you to this area, show you where they are. Sorry, I got a little confused there, but that is where they are. They're easy enough to find. As you get through that, you'll then come to this one we just completed, all right? You can do it. Anyone can digitize. And now the auto-digitizing, I'll show you just a couple of things. I'm going to take just a couple of extra minutes. I'm going to click New. Your auto-digitizing icon is right here, but when you come down, it'll show you that we have, number one, a cross-stitch auto-digitizing. We also have photo stitch. Now the photo stitch isn't quite working where I want it to work. It does function. It functions with simpler photos actually pretty darn good. Give it a try, but there are going to be improvements to that. There is an artwork wizard, and there is this amazing digitizing wizard. Click on that digitizing wizard. Click on select image. It'll take you into the software, into your files. Excuse me, I've just got to find this file. I believe it is under here. Nope. I went to Windows 8.1 on this. I've had a few issues finding my images. I know where they are now. One more second. I'm so sorry, folks. It's just Floriani right here. It's in Files 86.
C drive.
My C drive, excuse me, right here. Floriani, Total Control U, Library, excuse me, and Images. And truly, this I just want everyone to give a try, okay? Doesn't matter what you picked. I'll go ahead and I'll pick, you know what? Let's go ahead and I'll pick this one. I've never done this one before. Just click on Open. We're going to do that ladybug. Click on Next. The first thing, again, that you're going to do is give it a size. Let's give it a size. We'll just move it up a little to about 75. Click Next. It's going to give you your color sequencing. Click Next. This is going to expand out here, and it's just going to bring a tolerance value to the artwork that you have. When you click Next, you now get your wizard or your judgment page where you can minimize your color changes or minimize jumps. By minimizing color changes, the design will make more movements. It controls your lock stitch. I always want a lock stitch activated. It's the most important stitch in embroidery. This is nude auto digitizing. It's just more controls. And your trim, whether you want to trim, never trim, always trim, or trim after a certain length of stitch, when you hit finish, it will generate that design, and I guarantee you that that design will not run. Not only is it completed, but if we zoom in, you'll also see that the distortion values have now taken place. That was added to auto digitizing. 8 out of 10 designs that I have tried, I have had to do nothing to enhance their runnability. Now, some of the things that you can do, and as I look at this design, and I come in and make it look 3D, is I would change a couple of things. Number one, I'm going to take the black, and I'm going to move it to the bottom of the design, okay? Or take the red and move it to the top. I'm going to change position of it. When I go into the red, though, and I open this up, you've got 3 fills. You've got that fill there, you've got that fill right there, and then you have the fill at the top. I want to bring some dimension, so I'm going to select this one at top, and then I'm simply going to go to the second icon down called Shape, and I get my angle lines. I'm going to take this fill straight left to right. Why? Because it's going a different dimension. Right-click, and you've done it. Okay, now this one, as I come in, you'll see that it's going at a 45-degree angle this way. As I click on this one, same angle that way. What about changing it to that 45-degree angle, but going in this direction? And you can see right there the dimension change that you have in designs. Okay? You can change satins into fills, fills into satins. Sometimes just changing simple angles can bring a whole nother dimension to embroidery designs, folks. Look, it is time to go. I am actually past time. Kathy, I want to thank you so very much. DJ, thank you. Digitizing in front of all of you is what I want to start doing more of. We will indeed get more complex, but I wanted you to see the simpler side of embroidery and how to put it all together. Watch your videos, go through it step at a time. I have never been as excited as I am about our FTC-U product line, the updates that are coming out, the new features, the abilities that it has. We're just getting started, and I swear you've not seen anything yet, folks. Just wait. I love you all. Hugs and stitches to you all. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.